All right, everybody, Becoming Ultra. Scott Jones here. I'm with Mariah Parsley. Is that still your name?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
absolutely.
I've known you for a while. I'm just messing with you. Anyway, Mariah is a friend, and she's been a client for a while. She's run in season 10 of the Becoming Ultra project. She lives in North Carolina. They got hit pretty hard with Helene, like devastated, like a lot of places, a lot of communities. I have a lot of family in the Asheville and Silva area, and I can confirm you guys were hit really hard. But we wanted to do something kind of different on the Becoming Ultra platform, make a little dent in some of the fundraising. And so what I came up with is to promote a little challenge I put together that's going to take donations to donate to a rebuild fund in the town of Spruce Pine, North Carolina. The goal is 1,000,000 steps in 50 days. The last 50 days of 2024, which starts November 12th, is to just bring community together and especially runners. This is a running platform primarily, but we're going to invite anybody who wants to do this. The goal is the million. If you're only averaging 6,000 or 7,000 steps a day, let's try to get to 15. We're just going to see what we can do as a collective to push each other and bring some awareness to some of these small communities. I could have easily called up some family members in the Silva area and done the same thing, but you are my runner on the ground. I think people will resonate with your lifestyle and what you've been doing and hopefully get behind it a little bit. Mariah, let's talk about how it went down. Like,
Oof.
the rains were coming from that hurricane. What was it like? Were you guys ready for this?
Well, I think some of us knew it was going to be a big storm, like an unprecedented storm, is what they kept calling it. I even those of us that took it seriously were not prepared for how it actually went down and the secondary effects of the rain. We've never seen that kind of flooding in our area. We've never seen that kind of secondary landslides in our area either. The big thing that got us in hindsight is it rained. That weather system brought rain here for, I want to say, the whole week prior. We had consistent rain. So the actual hurricane happened on Friday. We had consistent rain probably from Tuesday. So our rivers were already above their normal levels. Our grounds were already very saturated by Friday morning. You know, after a week of rain, I'm used to it raining. Wake up Friday morning, normal time. I thankfully had already scheduled PTO for myself that day, but got up at 6:30. I remember looking out the window. It's raining. Yes, the river is high. I can see it from my house, but it's not cresting the banks yet. The hardest part, I think a big factor that led to so much human devastation in this storm, is that all of our cell service went out very quickly. So internet, of course, went out, power went out, but along with that, I don't think the majority of us were prepared for cell service to go out that quickly. It was like I couldn't even check the weather to see how long it was going to keep raining for past that. So once the river, I've told you this, but like we live on a little bit of a bank, but it is right across the street from the river. The main river that flows through our downtown, and I'm from a very small town, and there's a park that separates the river from my house. So once the river started spilling over into the park, even watching it, I did not believe it was going to crest past the park. We've experienced flooding in that park pretty routinely because it is right next to the major river, but I wasn't expecting it to fill up a baseball field and keep coming. So to the point where I thought my boyfriend Brandon was joking when he said, "Hey, I'm going to go move our cars to higher ground." I was like, "Okay, if that makes you feel better." I'm still sitting at the house with the dogs and we're just watching it rain. He comes back from moving cars and he's like, "We need to pack a bag and get out." I thought he was joking. When you can only see what's outside your window and you don't have cell service to see how bad it's getting other places, it was really hard to gauge the safety risk of it. Um, hindsight now, we should have left when the storm started, but we did end up evacuating, carrying my two dogs and all of us to my mom's house on the other side of town, away from any rivers. So we did evacuate. We evacuated around 10:30 that morning and tried to come back to about 5 o'clock that evening. I was not prepared for what we saw after that. The river had come halfway up our yard. It looked like a little beach in our yard at that time. Thankfully, the rain had stopped. Thankfully, the water didn't continue to rise because a lot of times they say waters aren't going to hit their highest level hours after it stops raining. But I guess because of our geography, any water that was flowing down flowed very quickly from the higher peaks. At that point, we watched our whole lower street of downtown underwater. A whole major road in our town was underwater. The local gas supplier totally flooded, water up to their roof. It was very apocalyptic. I think a lot of us were in shock and probably still have for weeks afterwards.
Yeah.
Just because it wiped out, water is powerful, but I did not have a reference point for how powerful it was. I watched it totally engulf and crunch large structures. It was like they were little ants.
Yeah.
We were extremely lucky. We had somewhere to evacuate to. We got out in time. The nature of it in these small mountain communities, we didn't have cell service, internet, or power for several weeks after. So I was unable to see other communities near me and the devastation there until I got cell service a couple weeks after. And then it was like it almost just hit again, seeing everything else everywhere else.
Yeah.
But now we have power, we have water. It's still not drinkable, but we're hopefully getting there. The cleanup effort is going to be very, very long term. If you walked around our town right now, it still looks like it did maybe the week after.
Yeah. It's crazy. I was looking at our text string because I texted you October 3rd asking how you're holding up. And I didn't get anything until the 20th. And I was like, oh, I figured your cell service was out for a while. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were going through that. And the fact that you guys had a place to feel safe through the whole thing. I've spent a lot of time in that region of the country. I went to college in North Carolina, not too far away from where you guys are up in Boone. I got hit really hard with this stuff. And I went to college in Southern West Virginia as well. My mom and dad retired to West Virginia at this place we camped, and she lives right on a river that's very similar to the stuff that runs through North Carolina. My cousins and uncle and aunt live in Silva, close to Asheville, about 40 minutes west of there. I don't know if a lot of people realize how the rivers are kind of the lifeblood of these communities. These little downtowns are always posted up right next to the rivers where all the shops are. There's always a sprawl of housing along the rivers. People live up on the mountaintops and up in the hollers too. You have all these little tributaries that come down into these rivers. It's really hard to gauge when the water's going to get high because everything's funneling into a certain spot. So it can be really crazy how powerful those waters get. Where my mom lives, it's a place that we vacation forever. And there's this little town called Petersburg in West Virginia. I want to say early 80s, late 70s or something like that. There's a huge flood in downtown on the post office. They have a mark at the top of the brick building where the water came up. And we would always try to imagine what that would look like. And you have points where the river or the valleys are wide and they come to points where mountains come together. And that creates like this crazy pressure system, where the water increases in speed to get through these gaps. And I'm sure in some of those points, the devastation was even worse, but there's nowhere to go. Like there's not really anywhere to go in a lot of communities, you can go up a hill, but then you're dealing with slides and it's wild, right?
Yeah. Well, that's been my main struggle trying to explain to people who have never been here or didn't grow up here, the community structure. Of course, the immediate response was, why didn't these people evacuate? By the time most people realized how bad it was going to be in terms of the river flooding or landslides, roads were already taken out. The roads are built mostly along the river because that's the flattest spot around these communities. That's why downtowns were built next to the rivers as well. It really is very sad and devastating how many people in that situation where they were living really close to the river, but by the time they knew it was time to leave, they couldn't get out physically.
Yeah. Tell me about your little town before all this stuff. Spruce Pine, right?
I was born and raised here. I think most of the Becoming Ultra crew met me when I was living in Asheville. I was one of those who always felt a little too big for their small town. I wanted to get out. I wanted to experience others. I did end up returning to my hometown of Spruce Pine almost 2.5 years ago. My mom is still here. She's been here the whole time. All of my family are from this town. It prides itself on being the mineral capital of the world because it It kind of is. The biggest industry is mining for quartz. During the storm, it became a big issue. A lot of articles came out about how, because our mines had to shut down, our quartz mines, technology was going to take a hit in terms of new production of technology. Because this is a little fun fact, there's quartz from spruce pine in every electronic device that you have, so your phones. However, just because we have that big industry here, you wouldn't know it just being in this town. It's still a very impoverished small town of Appalachia that mostly relies on tourism for a lot of the people who live here in terms of their income. A lot of people do work for the mines, but it's very tourism heavy here. So we are right outside Mount Mitchell. We are an hour from Asheville. Just a very beautiful, still relatively untouched area of Western North Carolina.
Yeah. What's downtown like?
Downtown, so it's struggled to get its feet for a while, and of course this knocked it out even worse. Coming from having a bustling downtown of Asheville back to Spruce Pine was an adjustment for me, but it had come a long way since I was a kid, right? Since I was in high school, we had even gotten a sushi restaurant here, which is a big deal.
Oh,
I made it my personal mission to keep them in business, but of course now they're gone. We had a coffee shop, sandwich shop that had been in this area since I was a kid too, and had just expanded their dining area of their coffee shop and sandwich place. And now they had literally just finished that. And so that's all wiped away. I think the highlight for me of Lower Street that, got flooded was my friend has a floral shop, and she's younger than me, in her mid-20s, but she had started volunteering at this floral shop to be a florist. Like, she felt like that was her passion, but she was volunteering on the side, and she was finally able to purchase that business earlier this year. She was able to fully own it. It was one of the businesses that was totally wiped out. Our downtown has been trying its hardest to make inroads, to be appealing to outsiders, right? To offer good restaurants, to offer unique things, to show off the arts of this area. For the past month, it's all totally been at a standstill. Now that we're a month out, you still get updates via rumors. Let me back up. Our downtown is separated by an upper street on higher elevation and a lower street next to the river. Some of the businesses on the upper street that weren't flooded, that weren't affected in that way, have started trying to create temporary space for businesses on Lower Street to still operate in some limited capacity this week. At this point, all of those businesses have been denied any kind of emergency FEMA money. None of them had flood insurance because that was never a concern in this area. Now, the majority are left to try to scrape together some donation funds to rebuild.
It's so funny that the description of that town, I've been in like probably 10 towns that are like that. You have the Lower Street and the Upper Street. The closest town to my sister and brother-in-law, it's called Thomas, West Virginia, and they have the same thing. We go and they do the July 4th. Everybody goes to the top street and watches the fireworks over the river. I can picture your hometown. I don't think I've ever been there, but I can picture it really well. When we were talking through text before we got on this call, I was like, because we were talking about potential scams. Like, people that don't live there want to help out, and they send money, and sometimes it's not going to where they think it is. So I wanted to go to the smallest, most obvious place to donate. So we chose together the Downtown Spruce Pine. There's a fund that they have for help and for donations. And if you guys want to check it out while you're listening, I'll put the links in there, but it's Discover Spruce Pine NC. We have this Spruce Pine Main Street Association. I'm assuming they're just taking the funds and trying to help the individual businesses get up and running again. Is that right?
Yes. So my friend the florist has been my point of contact to find out some of that information. Yes, they are compiling donation funds. I think they have it listed on Facebook under their Facebook page, but also on their website. And once they hit their goal, they will be distributing that to all the businesses directly.
It doesn't seem like a big deal, but you take people's livelihoods away overnight. It's crazy. If there was a silver lining, it's the fact that it hit before winter, where the rebuild can happen over the winter, because tourism is down in most of these communities until March or April. So hopefully a lot of those guys can get up and running again before the busy tourism season happens again. If you're planning on going to Asheville, because it's a huge vacation and tourism spot, check out some of these small towns and spend your money there. That could be really helpful for people. I like the small towns better anyway. Like Asheville is going to find the resources because it's such a big economic driver in the region. You know, a lot of you guys are going to get kind of passed over. So if you guys are listening, and we're just going to roll this out. If you're a runner, especially, or if you're just like hiking and getting in nature, where you live is epic. Mount Mitchell, it's the highest mountain on the East Coast.
East of the Mississippi.
We were training Mariah for this awesome self-supported effort called the Pitchell.
Pitchell. That's what everybody knows around here. I was going to be from Mount Pisgah, our second highest peak, to Mount Mitchell.
Yeah, and it's just this epic effort, tons of like awesome trails for anywhere in the country, but you know, some of the best trails on the East Coast for sure. So if you're an adventurer, you can get as many miles as you would ever dream of. Just setting up a base camp in one of these small towns would be really cool. So yeah, driving people out there in the summertime would be really cool. How are the trails doing after that? I'm sure they're jacked up pretty good.
It is really rough. That was the most depressing part, and I hate to say that. That's been the hardest impact for me in terms of trying to recover mentally and emotionally from all this. I frequented Mount Mitchell trails, and Mount Mitchell got hit. I think it had the highest amount of rain. Like, it got hit hard.
Yeah.
So obviously the Mountains to Sea Trail, which is what Pitchell would have been on, was totally decimated. I had a friend go out there yesterday just to see what it looked like, and she sent me a picture where there were so many trees down that you couldn't even see through them to see daylight.
Wow. That's wild.
My close to me and Spruce Pine Trail that I would frequent had a huge landslide on it, and half of it is still covered in trees. So it's had a significant impact. You know, during COVID, you could still go out in the woods, right? Right now, it's extremely limited where we can go and have that kind of therapy and nature experience.
Have you run yet?
Yeah, I did find out we're also pretty close to Lake James and the Fonta Flora Trail system that they've continuously been trying to expand. A big portion of that got hit pretty hard in Old Fort, but the part that's right next to Lake James is open and cleared. So I've been going down there a little bit on the weekends, and part of Bent Creek Experiential Forest in Asheville is open. The trail crews have been hitting that part very hard, but they haven't been able to touch anything outside of that quite yet.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, how you prioritize what to do. I mean, if you own a business, you're going to work your butt off to get your business back up. If you're part of that community, you know how important the trails are to the tourism part of things. So it's like chicken or egg for all this stuff.
Well, and it's one of those things where from the get-go, I was like, you know, that should be last priority for all these volunteer crews that are coming in, because the humanitarian effort has been such a big piece here. But yeah, eventually I'm hoping some of those volunteers can spread out to the trail.
Yeah, heck yeah. All right, so this is what we're doing, y'all. We want to support this little community. I will have on becomingultra.com a little link up there that says 1,000,050. That's 1,000,000 steps in 50 days. We're going to work our butts off. Hopefully it brings some good awareness to the area and this specific little community and raise some money. The way we're going to do it from a cost standpoint, whatever you can give. If you can give $5, awesome. If you can give $1,000, awesome. If you can't give anything, you want to promote the area, we'll have a Facebook group where we can all get in there and like share our steps. I found this cool little app that when you sign up, we'll send you a link and it connects your watches and your phone, like the health app, to this thing. So it'll upload your steps automatically. So we don't have to do math every day. I know how everybody loves doing
awesome.
that.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
So I found all these little ways to make this a community thing. And then, yeah, the goal is 1 million. If you get half of that, that's 10,000 steps a day. Still pretty good, I think. And we'll just kind of come together a little bit and try to raise some funds. PayPal has this cool little app where you can donate. So you guys will click on that. There's not going to be any price on there. You just kind of go and donate whatever you can. After the initial push, I'll donate to the Spruce Pine Downtown Fund. If we get donations along the way through people sharing this and supporting you, I'll shoot that over every chance I get. If you guys are looking at some of these communities and you have a connection to some of the other ones, like go donate. Like, I'm not saying like you have to
Yeah.
just go through this, but this is just a cool way for the running community, especially trail runners who get it. Yeah, of course, it's not the most important thing, but we all know how important it is to get out in nature and experience these things for our health, our mental health, and for the community. So that's what we're going to do. Is there anything I missed, Mariah?
I don't think so. I'm excited. Something to keep me motivated to keep moving.
Yes.
um, much needed. So
Well, and
appreciate.
if I look, I'm going to pull this up right now because it's so funny. Let me see here. If I look at like so I'm still coaching Mariah. If I look at like days off that I give you, it's kind of hilarious because you're like, yeah, I know it's a day off. I have to do it for my mental health. I'm like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. But in your training, there's a 4.01, 4.02 effort, and it's the Spruce Pine Trail Run. You run that thing all the time. And
Yep.
it's just so weird to see that name over and over in the programming. You guys have been in some national news for how hard you got hit. It's been pretty wild. I think trail runners get it. In the description below this video, this will be on the podcast. It'll be on the website. I'm going to put links to individual businesses down there, links to the fund. Yeah, if you can send me some of those links, that'd be awesome. And then we'll have some pictures so you guys can get an idea of what it used to look like, what it looks like now, pull the heartstrings a little bit. But we're thinking about you guys, and I think this will be a really cool, positive thing to focus on for the end of 2024.
Absolutely. And will make me feel more useful to my community when I have to keep my day job.
I'm sure you can rally people that get what we're trying to do and see if we
For
can.
sure.
I'm going to reach out to some people that have some really big followings that I don't have, that are runners, and we'll definitely understand the whole point of this thing. So we'll push it out there and see what we can do. Thanks for listening, Mariah. Thanks for taking the time. Yeah, get on. By the time you watch this, everything will be up on the site and ready to roll. Everything starts on November 12th, though, so you can't bank any steps before the 12th.
Thank you.
That's awesome.